Around the NFL podcast. Tarps on.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. Got one hero with me. Gregg Rosenthal. Hey, Greggy, what's up?
Stretch that out. I'm looking to rebound. I was coming off vacation on the last show. It was like a late night the night before. I actually locked my car keys in my car at the parking spot, then had to get an Uber home with the family, then take an Uber back. This is all after midnight after being traveled. And it just didn't feel like I brought my A game, so I'm going to try to bring it today.
I didn't sense that you had faltered on the show on Monday, but on Tuesday, but at the same time.
Could have been better. I wasn't thinking clearly.
The keys in the car. I've done one better. I've done the locking keys in the car while the keys are in the ignition and the car is running before. I've done that one.
Yeah, but this is like my parents live on an island, so you had to take the boat, and then you have to get from the boat to the airport in a car, in like an Uber, and then that's an hour. Then you take the flight there, you get back, you got two kids, and it's 11:30 p.m. And the first thing we do when we get into the car, I pack all the bags and then close everything, and then and then I'm a disappointment to my children.
The wife must have been furious with you.
She wasn't pleased, but we realized she had a set of house keys, which really saved the day.
All right, well, that's good. It all worked out. You're here.
Sorry.
You're still in a committed relationship. Your children love you. We have a nice show
If she
tonight.
leaves me, it'll be like after they go to college. She's going to wait, get through that at least.
Stay together for the kids, that old gag. I was reading something today. We are in the Chris Wessling podcast studio. There were little turns of phrase with Wes that I missed because we haven't heard them now for well over a year since his tragic passing. And one that I was reading something about the return of Better Call Saul, which is one of my favorite shows on television. It's back this weekend. And something about Saul Goodman, and it said, he was hoisted with his own petard.
Ooh, that's a Wes.
And I was like, that stopped me in my tracks. And that was, Wes did not typically back down on things. That was one of the great things about Wes and what made him such a great conversationalist and on this podcast. But sometimes if he kind of got caught and he got busted on something, he would say, I've been hoisted with my own petard. It's from Hamlet, by the way. Did you know that?
I didn't. He had a way with words. I miss it. I mean, I want to go start. I think I'm ready to start listening to old podcasts just to hear his voice. It's not something I've done. Not something I was really ready to do. I traditionally don't like listening to our podcast. It just annoys me. I think of what we could do better. I annoy myself mostly, but I think it's time. It's time to do that.
Well, while you were away last week when we did our Qualis Tu Fantasia segment, Colleen and Mark and myself all listened to the previous one with Chris and hearing his laughter and how much he got a kick out of, especially Mark's setups and stuff. That was nice. Yes, it's he is always with us in the archive of this show as well, which is, yes, once you're ready to go back to it, it's pretty amazing that we have it. It's amazing. Link has it, of course, and Lakeisha. So, all right, let's get to the program. We have a special guest. I don't know how we booked him. I mean, he's the busiest man. He must be really busy right now. Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network fame and our occasional enemy on this show, our rival, maybe not in the podcast game.
No.
But in some ways,
no.
A rival.
He gave up on that. He had that upstart. What was it called? Path to the Sticks, I think.
Foraging logs?
Right. It was something, but he has his lane. We have ours now. We're both kings of our domain. And sometimes you don't want to go into someone else's domain.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see his attitude when he comes here. Sometimes there's big time guys that they go on other people's show and they take over the entire show. And that's
seen it.
I've thought about I've worried about doing that you don't want to become that guy.
Wow. Stay tuned. This is going to be really interesting to see how that conversation goes. Gregg, you could find yourself hoisted with your own petard. So be careful. But before we get to DJ talking a little draft, because the draft is coming. It is, in fact, 2 weeks from today. And we will be in Las Vegas for that, the 2022 NFL Draft. Let's hit the news.
But it was basically taking Coke out and putting Pepsi in. Didn't realize at that time the kind of impact that having Phil Knight come to the sideline with Monica Lewinsky, not Monica Lewinsky, but with a great tennis player at the time.
You don't need any context, Greg. You know who that is, obviously, Jared Jones, but mistaken Monica Seles, the tennis great. You are a big tennis fan.
I loved Monica Seles in the day. Perhaps maybe the most
Not Monica Lewinsky.
dominant force in women's tennis in history before that happened. If you look at the stretch she had, that is embarrassing. Is that a recent quote? He was just talking about that?
Yes.
I got to say, and we have to be careful here, but
very careful.
There was this little social media clip going around how Jerry Jones had a availability yesterday, and he made this joke because he was stories above the entire media and everyone below him, and he was like, "Oh, my subjects beneath me," and everyone laughed. And there's been a lot of laughter for Jerry Jones press conferences. Like he's untouchable. He can go through anything. Yes. To have the off season that Jerry Jones has had on multiple fronts, and no one cares, and everyone's laughing at all his jokes. He's in that zone where he can do whatever he wants.
It's very hard to get into that lane, that bulletproof lane. But Jera has done it.
It's a little much. It's a little much. Right now, I need a little less of it, a little less.
All right, let's get into it. A lot more money for Derek Carr, who signs an extension with the Las Vegas Raiders, 3 years, $121.5 million. Takes him through 2025. It is the agreement came as Carr was entering the final year of the deal he signed of his previous deal, and that locks him in with Josh McDaniels, the new head coach, gets him that security, peace of mind that I imagine he's been waiting for some time with the Raiders. It never seemed to come under John Gruden, but it feels like he finally has it. Derek Carr spoke about his passion for being a Raider in the press conference that accompanied this announcement.
I've only wanted to be a Raider, and I told my agent, I said, I'm either going to be a Raider or I'm going to be playing golf. Like, I don't want to play anywhere else.
I buy it. I think he's kind of, Greg, a interesting figure in the landscape of quarterbacks. I think he thinks a little differently than other quarterbacks. I think being a Raider means a lot to him. Certainly being a Raider now that Devontae Adams is there as well means a lot to him, and having Darren Waller in the house. He's had an interesting career, and now he gets to continue with the Raiders. Clear skies ahead.
An almost unprecedented career. I read this stat from ESPN from Paul Gutierrez that he's 58-70, and his record is worse in terms of 500 than any quarterback that stayed with the team that long. That's now entering his 9th season. And he hasn't won a playoff game, of course. And respect has been hard earned from fans, from jamokes like us, who he once blocked, and from his organization, as you mentioned, because he signed that contract at his very heights, like multiple regimes ago in Oakland at the time, Reggie McKenzie, when they were about to make that playoff run, and he played all the way through that contract, and basically, and there were questions about him the whole time, but I give him so much respect because I think he's really improved at his craft, and he gets just like a little better every year. And you just keep stacking it, especially the last 3 years. I just think he's gotten a little better throwing the ball deeply. He's gotten better making decisions. He's smarter than ever. He's got great setting the protection. He still doesn't maybe throw as many passes as you want in terms of being aggressive in key situations, but he's gotten better at that. Like, where each year he's just like a couple spots better. You got to respect the guy who's done it that way, because nothing's been easy for him, and nothing's going to be easy. That division is so hard. He's got a better opportunity with better players, but nothing's easy here. They could be in a spot a year from now where they're still 4th place in that division.
He embraces the challenge. He likes the idea. I think he feeds off it, in fact, and it plays into why he's a little sensitive on social media, because he does get a lot of doubts, and the doubts are still there now that Russell Wilson has also joined the AFC West, and it's a loaded division with great quarterback play, but because he's gotten better, incrementally better, and now that he has a true superstar wide receiver in Devontae Adams, I do see a scenario where the Raiders have a real chance here to compete. They won 10 games last year. I think that's in play again this year, even in that division. And he's just a fun guy to watch because I think he does operate with a little bit less than some of these other guys, and yet he does find a way to make it work. And I thought it was interesting on Twitter when the news went down. So there was some discussion. Ben Solak of The Ringer had mentioned that he's kind of in that zone where everyone ahead of him is a true star, and then everyone behind him is not a true or a true established quarterback on one end, somebody that's not a guy you could trust on the other side of Derek Carr. And of course, that is, we mentioned Chris Wessling, that is the Dalton scale, and maybe Derek Carr is the prime meridian. I think he's a little on the positive end compared to that.
This reminds me of an old back and forth, though. I don't know if you're showing the strongest grasp of what the Dalton scale is. You always had a problem because to me, Carr is clearly on the right side of the Dalton scale. What Ben Solak was saying was, yeah, he's in that Kirk Cousins Tannehill tier to me, which is clearly you're not going to get better than that, most likely. It's really hard. He's clearly better than the median, which to me is closer to a Teddy, a replacement level. I guess Tua would be someone, or maybe even Matt Ryan now. He's above that. So he's like on the right side of the Dalton scale, but he's not the transcendent player.
And is that good enough, especially in the AFC West? I get it, but what else are you going to do if you're the Raiders? I guess you could have gotten in the mix for Deshaun Watson if you chose to go down that road, or Russell Wilson, but they went with the guy they know and trust. Here's the Solak.
I think he's in the same tier as the Stafford, though, who just won a Super Bowl. I think the idea is you surround him with enough great stuff, you can win with him for sure.
The other thing about and it was sometimes difficult to grasp for me, the Dalton scale, was that Dalton, even when he had a big year, like in 2015, for instance, he remained the prime meridian. He would slide.
Yeah.
The scale would react to him moving, which always blew my mind. But Ben's tweet, just because I want to have it right, all quarterbacks better than and including Derek Carr are probably good. All quarterbacks worse than Derek Carr are probably bad or are Kirk Cousins. So that's where Solak came down. Very interesting to see how this AFC West unfolds.
The last quick thing is that I want to mention is just the contract, which I give both sides a lot of credit for. I think was really interesting. I think it really split the difference of what both sides were trying to accomplish. Carr got a lot of guaranteed money up front, but he didn't get most of it until 3 days into the next league year. So they took care of him for this year. He asked for a no trade clause, and that's fascinating too, because that's currency. Like that's like you're in a negotiation. The team gave that to him because ultimately that helps him control a process potentially a year from now in a scenario where this doesn't go well, which I think they're entering this contract knowing it's possible that he could be traded and that he would be able to control that process. So most of the guarantees are 3 days into next league year. And if for some reason the Raiders really struggled or McDaniels and him weren't a match, then he could be talked about as a potential trade chip a year from now.
And it should be noted that this is the first major quarterback contract to come down the pike since the infamous Deshaun Watson Cleveland deal, which according to one person who is plugged in that I had a conversation with, and this makes sense, owners are not happy at all about how things played out with all that guaranteed money and just the logistics that's going to be involved with having to pay other quarterbacks. Now, Carr doesn't have the leverage to pull that move the way Watson did, but Justin Herbert, for instance, probably does. So this isn't. I don't think Carr is a good test of what the Watson fallout is going to be, but it's certainly.
Hey, it's like owners, get over yourselves. You're billionaires. You can guarantee one contract for a quarterback. I think they'll be fine.
Well, some owners are more wealthy than other owners within, and there's things with
I see where this
money needs to be put into escrow. You got to pay.
I'm not going to guess the source, but I think I have a good idea.
In other quarterback news, this is from Tom Pelissero. Greggy, this just came down, so let's react in unison. The Cardinals have yet to make a contract offer to Pro Bowl quarterback Kyler Murray. This from Pelissero, whose agent, Eric Burkhardt, that's the guy that sent out the giant letter in all caps that freaked everybody out, informed the team weeks ago he was pulling his opening proposal off the table, per sources. Other teams are monitoring closely. Arizona insists Murray won't be traded. Follow-up tweet from Pelissero, his reporting. 4 QBs, Rodgers, Watson, Stafford, and Derek Carr have signed contract extensions worth $40 million or more in the past month as the market continues to go up. Murray is due $5.5 million in 2022, and it'd be a surprise if he plays on that deal. Yeah, so here we are, Greg. This continues to linger. We've talked about it with Kyler Murray, that or is a holdout on the way? Could he still possibly be traded? The draft, of course, is right around the corner now. There's still a lot of smoke around this, Greggy, that Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals aren't long for each other.
This is just a reminder, I think, from Murray's agent and his camp. Remember me?
Right.
I've been out of the news a little too long. Remember me. They haven't even offered my guy a contract, and I think he's made it very clear he's not playing for that contract. That's what Tom Pelissero was saying between the lines. He's unlikely to play on that deal, and those two sides are going to come to a head.
Give me a new deal, trade me, or expect a holdout.
Hey, by the way, with the draft coming up in 2 weeks, here's a reminder to the other teams. If you want to get in a Godfather deal to the Cardinals, like now the next couple weeks is the time to do it. This is when some big-time trades have happened in the 2 weeks leading into the draft.
Right. And we were just talking about the Watson deal, how that changes the landscape in the NFL for franchise quarterbacks. Kyler, I think, is a guy that is above the Derek Carr tier.
Yes.
And probably is thinking to himself, I want something like that as well. And the Cardinals are like, hamina. Interesting. Speaking of the Cardinals, A.J. Green signed with the Cardinals last year and had a pretty solid season. We just talked about it with the Graybeards, and he returns.
Well, I look at
now.
this as a response to what you guys did, you and Silva. I'm putting him in this mix.
Okay, I'll hear you out.
Well, he just felt disrespected. He wanted to go to the Graybeards, and you're signing a cancer in Antonio Brown,
right?
Julio Jones, who can't stay on the field,
right?
And you didn't even give A.J. Green a sniff. He was waiting around for that call.
No, we sniffed him. What did Silva say?
It finally didn't happen, so he's like, I guess I'll go back.
What?
He waited for the show. He
Right.
appreciated that I even brought up his name, but then he's like, okay, I'll settle for the Cardinals.
It's important to note, because what Evan said was correct. I hadn't put that in my article. I hadn't put that out in the public. Evan leaked this, which we'll talk privately out. We were inviting him to camp.
Well, when you're just getting invited to the Graybeards camp, it's when you have to take a long look in the mirror about where you're really at.
Right. And
you want the guaranteed money from
we train actually in the Western New York area in the summer, so we were inviting Cole Beasley as well. So because he would have been able to practice with us. And
as long as you're outside, you're
outdoors. Stupid. But A.J. Green's back with Arizona. That's fine. He was a good fit there for what he brings to the table in 2022. Also, Sammy Watkins. Here's something crazy. He's 28 now. He was 27 for 12 years. And sure enough, he's also a guy that we had extended a workout with the Graybeards. We were planning to, and then realized he's still somehow in his 20s. So he goes and he signs with the Green Bay Packers, a team that is looking to fill in gaps here, Greg, now that Devontae Adams is catching passes from Derek Carr, or will be. So no MVS there, no Adams. They have a lot of work to do still, but Watkins, contract up to $4 million.
I legit love this move just because they need about 3 receivers. And I'm dying on this hill, but when Watkins has actually played the last couple of years, he looked good for Baltimore last year. He made a big-time difference in a handful of those games. Like, he is a good rotational receiver to have on your team. So for this price, they just need to take swings. He also hasn't topped 700 yards in a season since 2015. So you know what you're getting here. You're just getting like a guy that's in the mix. But he's also super into aliens, so I feel like that could be something him and Aaron Rodgers share.
I'll have some deep talks on. Yeah. Where are you on aliens? Mark, usually the oxygen in the room goes towards Mark and aliens, but now that he's on vacation, I'd like to know your actual
I actually remember there was a Sammy Watkins alien story and a Rodgers alien story that we've talked about on this podcast back in the day. I don't believe in aliens. I don't really.
Anywhere.
I'm not ruling them out. It's kind of like God for me. I mean, anything's possible, but not really.
So in this
jumping into that.
So in this universe, is there any other universe beyond this one that we're aware of?
I mean, there could be.
Aren't there like tons and?
I mean, there are
tons.
Not uni.
Tons and tons and tons of. I don't know.
I think if you
I think
look,
there are. I think the understanding is
it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I think there has been. And I'm not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure that they have found.
Wait, you're not a scientist?
I know, crazy, right?
It's a the multiverse. You know that's a date.
No, that's like Spider-Man, like the same thing, isn't it?
And I'm not
because
talking
universe. You know, in the name uni. You know that
means one.
One. Yeah.
Right.
See, I don't think, because I do think there is life elsewhere.
Yeah, how could you not?
But I also don't think. I know, Greg, you're like little green Martians and all this stuff. Like, no, I'm talking about other things, other beings that are like what we're doing right now or somewhere else.
It's possible. It's totally possible, but and so I wouldn't rule it out. But I haven't really been.
So, but right now you're out.
I'm out if I had to make the choice because I haven't been given any real reason to think so.
They're listening, by the way.
We're just filling in, holes. We don't know anything.
Sometimes we talk about like, oh, by the way, the monitors that are taping our show, those monitors are just playing in the shadowy league figures offices throughout this building. Think about that with the aliens in a big spot, watching you, judging them and doubting them.
I don't feel like that's gonna be what saves me or not.
In other news, oh no, Baker Mayfield's in the rundown. Let's try it again, Ricky. While you were out last week, Greg, I tried to fire this story into the sun, not once, but twice, and both times I failed. Let's give it another try. Okay, here we go. Come on, baby. Get to the sun. Get to the sun. Oh, look, it's another universe. He doesn't believe. Okay, I think this one's going to hit, actually. Oh, no. It's coming back.
Well, that's my fault.
Oh, no. Uh-oh. Went right over us. Oh, that was an old age home. Bad news. Here's Baker Mayfield, who was on a podcast, the You Never Know podcast, YNK, and he had to say this about how things have ended with the Browns and any disrespect he may feel. He's still a member of the Browns.
I feel disrespected, 100%, because I was told one thing and they completely did another. That's what I'm in the middle of right now. And you know what? Okay, I got my taste of it because I've had 4 different head coaches in 4 years, a bunch of different coordinators. I've had, talk about the highs. They always come back. Mm-hmm. They always come back.
He also expanded on like where he finds himself right now and what his future holds. It's a big question mark for him as well.
I'm just looking for stabilization right now, and like I know what I need to do for me to be the best version of me. I'm in a good place right now.
Right.
To where like I have no clue where I'm going.
Where is he going? Is he going to the Cardinals?
He threw out there that he thought the Seahawks were the most likely. I apologize that you sent the story into the Sun. I think we did that on the TV.
No, it
show
failed. It keeps coming back, so that's why we keep talking about it.
I listened to quite a lot of this because I did find it interesting. I think people were being a little unfair to Mayfield in terms of taking out some of the quotes, like the one where he said he'd like to go to other people's jobs and boo them at their desk job and see how they handled it, which is never like a great quote. But in context, it wasn't so bad. The most interesting part of this to me was he started talking about the fact that he understood his teammates didn't like him. And he started to say, and it was one of those things he said, if I'm worried about getting them to like me, what am I doing? They don't care if I like them either. They want their quarterback to win. They're trying to get a paycheck, blah, blah, blah. So guys who don't personally like me, that's fine. I have to get their respect. And the way I do that is working my ass off, being myself. Because you can get sniffed out in an effing heartbeat if you're fake. They'll sniff that out quick. And I hear that and I read that as like, I realize I was a fake. Like a lot of the things he was saying on this, and he was saying, I was really struggling to like motivate people when we're making money. That was easy. I could get in their face. I could do that because we were on the same playing field. But now it's like, these guys are rich guys. How am I going to motivate them? And when I hear that, I was kind of like, is he talking about himself? Like, how is he motivating himself? Because he's saying the good times are always coming back, and he's always this chip on the shoulder guy. Like, to me, he was kind of talking about himself, that his motivation has maybe gone up and down, that his way that he relates to other teammates in terms of, like, trying to be something that he's not, like, didn't work and he knows that. And I think, and that's mature. Like, you should be able to learn from that. He is a young guy who's going to hopefully learn. And the way that he dealt with his teammates and with the Browns was a bit of a problem. I think it's one of the reasons he's out there right now.
Whether it's a pro athlete or just anybody, whatever job is, like if you think people don't like you, I feel like it's time for a little introspection. Like, why don't people like me?
Right.
Like,
And I think this was him doing that a little.
Yeah. Like, and because it's not so important because it could be superficial. Like, everybody likes me, but nobody really loves you or cares about you. What is it that's rubbing you the wrong way or making you have friction with these guys? Because, we see that. Like, Russell Wilson's another guy. You hear things that sometimes there's some friction, but you also then have to back it up with big time play. And it's been too up and down for Baker.
I just when his takeaway was, though, I could always motivate people when we weren't making money. I think he's misreading what he needs to do as a quarterback in the NFL, because these men are motivated.
Who's the running back?
It's like they're motivated because they're trying to be great. And yes, they're motivated to make money, but that's like they've handled themselves getting to this point. And it felt a little bit like projecting. That a lot of times people, especially young people, give themselves away by what they notice in others. And, and I feel like his motivation, and he said the good times always come back. His play has gone so up and down, and I think he knows that about himself. He's not a steady guy, and he's not a steady player. Like, that's that's worrisome as a quarterback. Who
was the running back when Baker went on the record, and I think he did it confidently at the time, like, we don't want people here that don't want to hear. Duke Johnson. And I think in a college world, that probably made more sense. But in the pros, the players in that locker room, because I remember there being some percolation about that, were like, nah, man, it's a business situation, and Duke Johnson's caught in a tough spot. And I think Baker, maybe those are the type of things too that he'll think twice in the future before being so public. But he talks and he talks and he talks, and I think because he loves to talk so much, he's always going to be putting his foot in his mouth, whether he realizes.
Well, Seahawks responded to this story though almost immediately. You know what they did?
What'd they do?
They signed Geno Smith. They were like, Baker Mayfield can throw it out there that Seattle's the most likely guy. But we have a guy. Is this another app? We have a guy.
I think it's another app.
And now, another edition of Sippin' on Vino, Checkin' on Geno.
Oh, yes. One of the hottest names in the pro football universe, Geno Smith. He is back in the good graces of the Seattle Seahawks, who have signed him to a one-year deal with incentives that can get all the way up to $7 million, which is a nice contract. So he gets a raise off last year. And, oh, by the way, yes, Russell Wilson is not in the building. Pete Carroll, Greg, said that bringing back Geno, which they wanted to do, is not going to stop them or get them out of the quarterback market. But now they do have somebody, in addition to Drew Lock, that they could say, all right, I mean, do we want to roll with this guy? Why not?
Well, they're paying him $3 to $4 million. Drew Lock's a second-round pick on a rookie contract, so they're still paying less money at quarterback than I would guess every other team in the NFL. Maybe the Texans are paying less, so they can absolutely bring in Baker Mayfield if they want. Even though I am rooting for the chaos that would be Geno Smith, Week 1 starter. But they could bring in Baker, and they can certainly bring in a draft pick with their first-round pick. Either way, I expect them to.
The last time that Geno Smith was slated to be a Week 1 starter, he stiffed a guy over a $300 plane ticket and got his jaw broken. Remember that?
Never really got another fair chance again until, as Evan Silva pointed out, he lit it up last year and got like a 300% raise here.
He lit up the Jaguars, that's for sure.
He lit up. I just want to read you a tweet, though. Geno Smith.
Yeah.
This morning, tweeted out, like fine wine, baby.
Ooh.
Getting better with time.
And he also had a couple tweets around that center on that he was an old man now. Is it possible?
I'm just saying, is he listening to Sippin' with Vino?
I'm saying, if he's talking about how I'm an old man after he was a graybeard and he's making wine refs, is he a listener?
Well, he only follows 290 people on Twitter, and I'm one of them.
What?
Oh, yeah, he's followed me for a while. He knows I'm a fan.
You're one of 290.
One of 290. So that's like an exclusive club.
Are we putting out social stuff connected to Geno a lot, Ricky?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Huh. There's a chance Geno Smith listens to the show.
There's a chance. People always at me whenever anything happens with Geno, and at him too. So that might put it on his radar.
If you're listening right now, send us a sign. Okay. And one more thing on Geno, and maybe Geno turn it off for this one. Greg Rosenthal, PI. One thing you said on Tuesday when you were jet lagged and everything, and your wife had you sleeping on the couch, that you said like the real ones know what happened with that DUI arrest. And that didn't sit with me well, because it's like, if you know something on this podcast, Greg Rosenthal, PI, has to share it.
I'm just going to say that TMZ uses police sources for a lot of their stories.
Right. Let's quickly hit a couple of things. Do we want to hit the Brady Dolphins story here?
It's just so weird that I just feel like we should at least say that we don't believe it. That there was this story in the Boston Globe, which is like a big paper that
it's a large one,
said that the Dolphins were going to set up Tom Brady with a front office job, minority ownership, and he was going to be the quarterback, and that Brian Flores dropped his lawsuit on the Dolphins later that day of when Brady retired, and that ended up blowing the whole thing up. There's been very soft reporting about this. I think it was something that took a life of its own, whispered in NFL circles. We have our own Brady insider,
yes.
Remember who it is?
Yep, of course.
Who nailed the Brady story.
Oh, yes.
Who followed up
on
this one, ATN Deep Throat. He followed up on this story, this specific one, and he said that they were confused by it, that there's nothing to it.
Really?
Nothing to it.
I connected with ATN
I really think
Deep
it's bad reporting. And there's been some bad reporting by this particular reporter over the years that's made me question things. I'm just saying.
Okay. ATN Deep Throat, I said I wanted him to come on the show and we could do the thing where when you mask his voice, it's like, and he gives us, his reporting, and then he could become a huge character on the show. He didn't seem incredibly excited by the idea.
That doesn't seem like something he would want to do. But I think this story's fake. I just want to put that out there.
All right. The Lions signed DeShon Elliott. Greg, you have something on that, buddy?
I just think the Lions have had kind of like a quietly nice offseason. I like DeShon Elliott a lot as a safety for the Ravens. The players that the Lions brought back for the price that they did it, everything about this Lions team makes sense. It's been a while. I think they're doing this the right way. That's all.
All right. John Harbaugh says when Lamar is ready, we'll be ready. So this does not feel like the Kyler Murray situation, but it is notable that Lamar Jackson, who, unlike Kyler Murray, is a former MVP, is about to enter the final year of his deal. Do we have that sound from the Rich Eisen show this week?
He's a unique guy, and it's, people have been scratching their heads and trying to figure out Lamar probably for a long time, ever since he was a kid. And he's got his way of going about doing things, but that's what you love about him. That's what I love about him. When he's ready to do it, it's going to become a priority for him. And it doesn't have to be a priority for us right now. When it's God's will and Lamar's will at the same time, it's going to all fit together.
People have been trying to figure out Lamar since he was a kid. This whole thing that they're putting on him, that it's all up to Lamar, I just wonder what he thinks about them talking about it that way. He's stayed radio silent. This was one of those stories that I put into the rundown pretty high up when we didn't have a lot of news, and a lot's happened since.
Got pushed down.
Because I find
I
find the entire situation totally fascinating, and but we're going to talk about it a lot in the future. So it's like we don't need to go too deep, but I do think Lamar Jackson is trying.
He's not going anywhere.
He's trying to change the game. He's trying to change how quarterback contracts are structured, and I think that's what he's up to, which I think is fascinating. That he's putting himself out there.
DeShaun Watson's agent already do it?
Yes and no. He didn't get to free agency. I think if Lamar Jackson's goal is to get to free agency, and I believe that's what he's doing here, is he can change the game.
But that's a waiting process because
that's what I mean.
We're going to be talking about this. He can be tagged twice. The Kirk Cousins route.
The Kirk Cousins route. So this could be a 3-year process. But if that person actually got to free agency in the middle of his prime, I think he'd have more power than any player in the history of the NFL has ever had to be a free agent and a quarterback on the top of their power. This really hasn't happened. Not in this era. You get paid what you're actually worth. You might get paid $60-70 million a year.
All right, that's what's happening in the news. I do want to hit that USFL story, but it's gotten bumped 2 straight shows. But we're going to get to it maybe next week.
And Greg, you talked about bringing your A game this time, and I got to tell you guys something. I messed up.
What?
No, I messed up because I wasn't bringing my A game, and I didn't get in your ear, Dan, because we didn't close the Geno seg. So I feel like we need to hit it now because there are people just waiting.
Right. Right now, technically, we're still in the Geno Smith segment.
Right. We've been talking about this the whole time, and that's on me. I should have been
Maybe to fix it, I'll reread that Geno tweet because I think it just fits so well with the segment.
Yeah.
Once again, sent out at 8:15 in the morning. He's up early working out. Like fine wine, baby. Get better with time.
And that was another edition of Sippin' on Vino, Checkin' on Geno.
Frax just walks around the earth talking like that. It's got to work out well for her. All right, we're going to take a break. I promise you it's going to be a responsible break by our friends around the league. And we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Oh, my goodness. Here we go. Joining us, Greggy, the man of the hour, the man everybody wants a piece of, including us, okay? He is the draft expert for NFL Network. His name is not Barry, but he is a wholesome assassin. It's Daniel Jeremiah.
I got to be honest with you guys. I had a choice today. There's a 15-minute gap in my schedule, and I thought, you know what? I could eat lunch, or I could come hang out with my buddies at ATN. And it was really a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer.
This is why I like DJ, is because he tells you some real truth beneath all that wholesome assassin. He doesn't want to do this show. He does enough shows. He does enough different segments. He's at the point he doesn't want to do it, but he's generous enough after him and Rhett do a podcast earlier and leave trash behind.
Wow, Rhett left you a little bubbly.
Like the executives. I did find out whether it was you or Rhett. It was Rhett. So
by the way, now when you see Rhett, give him a difficult time because we were doing this show. You've got Path to the Drafts going.
Right.
You've got Mock Draft Live is going. So
got a lot of
with
shows.
all of the Move the Sticks logos, much like you have your ATN logos. He goes, welcome back to Path to the Draft.
Oh, no.
Easily confused. Same
There's
guys,
so many
different
shows right now. Yeah. You're at the center of so many of them. In fact, I reached out to you and I privately texted if you could join us today. I didn't get a response, but then we went through our people and we were able to get you. So that
your people called my people.
Yeah, we did that. So
I've been answering all of your fantasy baseball questions.
No, if I text you about Fernando Tatis Jr., it's like 12 seconds. It's ... answer.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, man, can you give us like 7 minutes for the show? It's like,
I swear I didn't see it, man.
But we know your time's valuable, so we've built a segment around.
This is what we've done. This is what we've done because we know.
How long is this segment, by the way?
It's exactly 12 minutes.
Okay, so 6 minutes of him giving me grief about my Justin Herbert grade. What are we going to do for the other 6 minutes?
We'll save that for the end.
We're doing something important here. This is for the listener with DJ joining us. We are unlocking the NFL draft in 12 minutes. This is the goal, by the way. At the end of the segment, this is what we want. That's what we want.
That's good.
And we want to give the listeners everything that they need to know. We have 6 segments, 2 minutes a seg, and we're going to get a lot of information out of the great Daniel Jeremiah. We're already 2.5 minutes into the segment. Out of the 15 minutes we were given, we are down now.
How much longer to your cookies already, by the way?
What's that?
Your timer over there.
I got my timer. Listen, let's stay on task here. Greg, get us going with the great Daniel Jeremiah.
All right. First category, let's start the clock, is tough but fair questions about wide receivers.
Okay.
If every wide receiver maxes out their ability in this draft, who has the best career and why is it Jameson Williams?
Yeah, I think if everybody maximizes it, he's got something that nobody else has. He's got a different gear than everybody else in this group, so Jameson Williams has the most upside of anybody. If it all comes together. I will say this, though. He does not have natural hands, which if you look at guys that have potentially busted at times, you find big-time speed guys who don't have natural hands. That would just be my little cautionary tale.
I feel like Patriots fans are hoping that he would fall. He's not falling to them.
We're doing it on the show today. I had the Patriots trading up to get him.
Ooh, I like that.
They got to get more explosive.
All right, another question here. If you were a GM, wouldn't you just take a wide receiver basically every year for your own job security because they all turn out to be good these days? And there's so many good ones in this.
High hit rate and the cost of getting a veteran and the veteran market, via trade or just signing a guy, the numbers are astronomical. So I think we are going to see this year, especially, we're going to see a record number of wide receivers go.
All right, Garrett Wilson is so high in your top 50 prospects.
Greg is so excited talking about that.
I am. Well, we got
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
You're doing that just to get attention, right? That's why he's that high.
No, he's the best one. He does everything. You can say, like I mentioned about Jameson, doesn't have natural hands coming off of a knee injury. Olave, big time vertical speed, not as strong. Drake London, I love him. He's my second guy, but he does not have the juice that you get there.
Great
Garrett Wilson
name,
does
too.
everything.
Great name.
Drake London? Yeah. 2 Drakes from USC in this
Well, I'm
draft.
looking at, your latest mock draft. You got Drake London at 10, Garrett Wilson at 8. Who else we got here?
Olave. I mean, I feel like
Traylon
7
Burks is
guys
gonna
could
go.
go in the top in the first round.
Jahan Dotson, I think, is going to end up going in the first round. I think there'll be 7.
How about Jahan Dotson to the Pats?
I love Jahan Dotson.
Why?
He's got the best hands in the draft. He's going to be where he's supposed to be, which the Patriots are going to put a high emphasis on that. So smart, catches everything.
Okay.
He's got juice.
That's
Great
2
start.
minutes.
Next up, the category.
How many more of these?
You get 5 more. We're making you work.
Oh, let's go.
The category is QB chatter. You buying into that one of your great enemies in the field, Greg Cosell.
Erica was on this show, correct?
Oh, that's right. The weakest link.
Is that the?
Oh, don't bring it up.
Struggles,
That's that's.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, I lost big time.
Oh, man, I never
big
saw
She
that.
time.
lost her
So
dignity.
feel
She
bad.
lost out on $60,000. It was a whole thing.
Yep.
But you got a great idea for a drop, so that was all worth it.
That's true. Here we go. QB chatter. Greg Cosell, one of your enemies.
Yeah.
5 QB theory. He says 5 go in the first round. You buying in on that?
I don't, but I get what he's saying because it's along the same lines what we were saying about the wideouts. I think when you look at what the cost is for these guys, you look at the $40 million club. Like the team I brought up the other day, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Greg. The Tennessee Titans, when you look at them and where they are, you got a head coach who just got a new contract. You get a GM who just got a new contract. You got a quarterback who couldn't win a playoff game when you had 9 sacks, turned the ball over 3 times. Are you sitting there saying we have a little bit of a luxury here, a little bit of time? If you think if Ryan Tannehill you think is still maybe a little bit better than Kenny Pickett, but is he better than Kenny Pickett plus the $30 million worth of savings you're going to get over the next 4
Or
years?
just a swing at Kenny Pickett or whoever
Yeah.
it turns out to be. This will upset Justin Graver, who's back there. He does not want the Titans taking a quarterback or an inside linebacker.
But I feel like
in the first
nobody's
round.
really mentioned them as a quarterback team, and I think that's like a sneaky quarterback team.
I agree.
What is the other team? Like the Panthers are a team with everyone saying they're in a tough spot here. Do you think they're going to do the move and take the quarterback early, or do you see them getting a little tricky in that 6th spot?
My theory on them is like Pickett plus, like Pickett plus or Willis plus. In other words, I think they would like to take a quarterback. I don't think they want to do it at 6. They have other roster needs. You look at that offensive line. If they could trade back and get a little something extra where they could get other guys, they need other guys to come in and play this year. They don't pick again until the 4th round. So to be able to get a quarterback plus somebody else, I think it makes sense, but it's going to be hard. You take a quarterback at 6, I'm not so sure that it's a slam dunk that they win the job right away. And if they don't play this year, you're out of a job. They have to win right now. And that's, to me, they need a couple pieces here.
So who's your guy 3 years from now of these quarterbacks? Before
Pickett, I would sleep good about. He's just going to be a solid player. Not as sexy.
Transition, next topic. You're halfway home after this one.
Okay, nice.
All right, DJ's guys. I just want you to highlight some of the guys that you're stumping for. You have Sauce Gardner number 3. Why is Sauce Gardner so cool that he lives up to that?
Unlocking the draft with Daniel Jeremiah.
Well, the first tape that I watched, sometimes it's just like one play, and you flip on the tape. I see this big, long condor out there at corner, and then he just has to flip and open his hips, and he was so loose and so fluid, which is unusual for a guy that size. And then, okay, he can find and play the ball. He's got some toughness along with him as well. So those guys are hard to find, big, athletic, rangy corners like that.
Don't you think like someone who needed to win this year, taking a cornerback like him would help you to win more than it would Aiden Hutchinson even? A great cornerback like that?
No, I mean, I love him.
Impact in year one, like you're going to feel better about them?
He's my highest graded player in this draft. He's my 3rd overall player, but he's my highest grade that I have. And to me, I just put more of a premium on the edge rusher.
So that is kind of standing on the table. If you needed one running back from this draft for one drive, he's not leaving the field.
Breece Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Breece Hall, because I can give it to him inside, I can give it to him outside, I can throw him the football, and he's adequate in pass pro. He can hold on in there. Kenneth Walker is an outstanding runner. Wasn't involved much catching the ball out of the backfield. I actually talked to Mel Tucker about that. He actually sent me practice clips of him catching the ball so you can see him. He can catch. He just didn't get a lot of opportunity to do it. And then the pass pro stuff with him is very much a work in progress.
That's why DJ's got the big chair.
That's why he's
he
got
sees Mayock out there, and he's like, no, I'm holding on to this.
Eviscerate his enemies with a smile. How about Kyle Hamilton, who some people say the best pound-for-pound player in this draft. Is he a DJ guy?
Yeah, he's my 4th overall guy. I like him, and I think it's a little bit out of control with the 40-time punishment that he's been given, because instincts for safety. You think about that. If you run 4.4 and I run 4.6, but I've taken 2 steps before you see what's happening, I've eliminated that. That to me is, I can get by with that. Ed Reed wasn't a 4.3 guy, but he was 3 steps ahead of everybody else on the field.
Do you see how DJ kind of slid in there, that he's a much better athlete than me? Massachusetts state champion, Minnetonka Regional Falcons, number 3 singles. Just putting that out there.
Go check out
with an unbelievable flow, by the way. Your hair was phenomenal.
Oh, in high school.
Yeah,
you saw that picture.
middle part guy.
I did put on an Instagram stories a nice middle part when my hair was dyed black. It was looking good.
Here we go. Next.
We're really putting DJ to work. He does not like
Driver's seat.
this.
Teams that are set up well in your mind as we look.
This is the Jets thing. Like, I knew we were getting to the Jets thing. Like, just tell me something good about the Jets.
Teams that are set
Well,
up
if they
well.
get Sauce Gardner, your number 1 graded guy.
Listen, if you
good.
don't think the Jets are set up well, don't talk about the
No,
Jets.
the Jets are absolutely set up well in this draft. They're positioned to make a killing. So I'm curious to see what they do with this year's picks and how they turn some of this year's picks into next year's picks. These teams, when you have this much capital, you're trying to spread it out a little bit. So I would say
you were right, by the way. I wanted this to get to the Jets eventually, and now it's there.
No, they're very well positioned. The other team, Atlanta, has a decent amount of picks too that I don't feel like people point that out quite as much.
What about Jacksonville? Because they have so many picks, and they have the number 1 pick. Do you actually think there's
my phone's ringing?
any possibility?
Yeah, let's see who it is.
Yes.
Could be anybody.
Let's see it.
It's not.
Oh.
It's Greg Cosell. It's like, you're going down.
If the guy's watching right now, he's going to be really disappointed that I said that.
It's a
Timestamp it.
It's a podcast. It's not live. But I know you don't know how podcasts work. How? Wait, the Jaguars. Will they have any chance to trade back? Because I feel like they could own this draft.
Who wants that pick?
Right. Okay.
Nobody wants that pick.
But like,
Phone's not ringing according to Rap Sheet.
Wouldn't it be worth just taking like 50 cents on the dollar of that draft chart if you were the Jaguars? Would someone even give them 50 cents on the dollar? Because they need so many players.
But if you were the Jags, like, here's an example. So it's out there. Everybody feels like Detroit loves Aiden Hutchinson. Would be obviously a popular pick considering geography, if nothing else. So if you thought they were in love with him and say you were going to take Trayvon Walker with the first pick, don't you just try and threaten them a little bit and say, hey, we're going to take Hutchinson. If you want him, though, you can have him.
It's like the 49ers
and we'll take pennies on the dollar.
thing.
So when I was in Baltimore, we were going to take Haloti Ngata.
And
yeah, exactly. Cleveland was right in front of us, and we thought they were going to take Cameron Wembley, which they eventually did. But they called us and said, we're going to take Haloti Ngata. And everybody in the room thought, no, they're not. But Ozzie was smart enough to say, okay, if we just give him a 6th-round pick, it guarantees we get Haloti Ngata. And I think that the 6th-round pick ended up being Babatunde Oshinowo. Sessler would know that.
Smart move.
Since you hit Atlanta, by the way,
where is he, by the way?
Another vacation.
Good night.
All right, Atlanta. You just say something nice for the Falcons fans. You said you like how they're set up. Falcons fans need this.
Well, yeah, and the good thing is, like, there's bad things and good things. The bad thing is your team stinks. You have no good players. The good news is you can literally take anything you want. Like, the best player available in every single round. They've got Kyle Pitts. And that's it. So just take whatever falls your way. That's kind of it's an easy way to draft.
I would be annoyed they didn't take a quarterback. All right, we're well into the next block here.
Yep.
This block I'm calling big picture questions from a guy who gets it.
Oh wow.
That's me.
Not quite as catchy. Yeah,
true or false?
It's a mouthful.
Let's workshop that one.
True or false? There are 25 guys in this draft like worthy of a top 15 pick, but maybe none or only one player that's really a top 5 pick. If it was last year's draft, especially.
Yeah, I would say you could make a case that 9 or 10 guys from last year would go 1 this year.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That's annoying if you. Well, I guess it's not annoying.
So, but what
Does that
about
bother you?
maybe
No,
people are like
depth. There's a lot of depth in this.
Reflexively, people are like, but don't get us wrong. This is a good draft. There's a lot of value in this draft. But then you say something like that, and it's like, oh, I wish I didn't have 2 first-round picks this year.
Think about outside the top 5. Rashawn Slater would be the first pick. Panay Sewell would have an opportunity to be the first pick. Micah Parsons would be the first pick.
Why does it make people so crazy when they saw you putting Trayvon Walker in your mock so high, and now he's like getting talked about number 1? Why are people going so crazy about that?
Because they weren't familiar with him. But this is
But he has like very little production for a guy to go that high.
No, and this is what happens in the draft. So you have the personnel meetings, right? So you go in there and say you're the scout, you've got the high grade on somebody. So you're fighting for him and fighting for him and fighting for him, and you're like, you guys are all too low. And then I get them up there. So then we go out to pro days. The coaches get involved, and then you come back in and you're like, oh, no, he's not that high. Like, all of a sudden, the coaches have now taken him all the way up above here. Like, I lobbied to get him to here, right? I thought that was his home, and now he's probably gone up a little bit higher than he should in this group.
Sounds weird. Jordan Davis, I know you can't get involved in this sort of thing, but over under 13.5 as his draft slot. Does he go earlier or later?
I will say I pegged him to when I went through this the other day, going through the different scenarios. I think I liked him to Baltimore, and they are 14. If I'm not mistaken, so that's 14.
It's banging the over.
I'm going whatever higher in the draft is. I'm going to higher. I feel like he's going to go in the top 5 or 6, and people will just be like, "Oh wow!" And then finally,
NFL security. Anyways,
all right, and then finally, I know like you enjoy making me miserable, so I just wanted to share this with you.
No.
We had Justin Herbert on at the Super Bowl, and I just want you to know it's haunted me every day since that I did not bring up the fact that you ranked Russ Blacklock over him. That was not bringing
Blacklock.
Right.
Go ahead.
Not bringing that up because this is what we do. You're the draft guy podcast.
We're never wrong.
That's our thing. Failing to ask that question in that spot was as big a mistake as you ranking Ross Blacklock over Justin Herbert.
I must say, it's the only time I've seen an ATN video show up on my timeline, and I actually watched it for that sole reason because I thought for sure you would have something.
It was a long week. I totally will.
Oh, you blew it. Final topic. This one's a quickie because, listen, we're up against that 15-minute limit.
It's not even there. DJ's messing with my chair. I already look short enough. Before the show, I lowered him.
Wait for me.
This is ridiculous.
Go ahead.
This category is omnipotence. What's the one thing you're certain about? Just one thing.
In this draft?
In this draft. Or in life. That you're taller than Greg, perhaps? Oh. Well, not anymore, because he just put the seat down.
My one thing I'm certain of, you give me a week with a racket, I'd be able to beat him.
Please.
That sounds like a pay-per-view.
Actually, I might have a bad Achilles. No, that's not serious. I don't want to do that. One thing that's for certain in this draft, it's going to be wideout heavy. That's my prediction.
Okay, early.
Lots of wideouts, early and often.
Like 7 or 8 in the first round, or 7 even in the top 20?
I think 7, and I think you could see them go up. I
love them all.
Am I allowed to ask questions on this?
Sure.
Sure.
We've lost the
Jets
idea.
The Jets,
yeah,
and you want one of 4 or 10 to be a wideout.
Right.
The more I look at it, the more I think just take him at 4, because you'd feel worse if you missed out on the wideout at 10 than if the edge rusher run happened.
Yeah, especially what you see what's happening like the last 2 years with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like if you got a guy that you love, he can instantly transform your offense. So if they're in love with someone, don't mess around. We've been looking for the edge rusher since John Abraham in 2006. But
you got Carl Lawson coming back. But why wouldn't you just take Sauce Gardner?
I love Sauce Gardner, but I'm thinking next year at this time, if the Jets are coming off with 17 games, so say they're 6-11, right? And Zach takes the next step, and you've got weapons, and it's fun to watch, and they're scoring points, versus they're 6-11, and the defense has kept you in all these games. You've got all these sacks, but Zach doesn't take a step forward.
Right.
You wouldn't choose that option.
Well, that's absolutely right. There we go. We're 2.5 minutes over. But DJ,
you better make sure those cookies aren't over.
Get you some warm chocolate chip cookies on the other side.
Is this the nicest I've been? I tried to be nice
this
here
this
today.
was very nice.
It is. Yeah. It is. I really I like hanging out with you, DJ, even though we sometimes go to war, and that the text wasn't answered earlier this week, but then you're on the show, so it's like the wholesome assassin at the end of the day.
I've never seen or at least felt DJ be happier though when he buried me on NFL Network, and then was like, I remember very distinctly. It was during the pandemic. I was at Vaughn's, and yeah, you buried me, and we were going back and forth about it. You really enjoyed that, yeah.
I don't recall that.
Yeah. That does tend to happen on the Twitter. Ricky, do you have any thoughts before we say goodbye to Daniel Jeremiah?
No, I think you guys absolutely crushed it, and I feel better for it for this draft.
All right, let's see.
Excited.
We're gonna use your Q rating, power, sauce, juice, in multiple ways here, because we're putting this on our TV show too.
Oh yeah, we're getting.
This is a TV show.
Well, it's a podcast, but we're struggling for content. We're gonna reuse it.
Let's put in the. I have the digits here. Let's put in the combination and see if we actually have unlocked the draft now.
Okay.
Here we go. 17, 69, nice, 12. There we go.
See, that's what you guys need on Move the Sticks.
Who was your favorite
more
tennis
sound
player? Who was
sound
your favorite
effects.
tennis player growing up? Lendl?
No, I don't know who was my favorite. I don't have a good answer. Malavia Washington.
I sit here and answer your questions for 20 minutes.
I'm a big Kei Nishikori guy now. I mean, but he's at towards the tail end. Jimmy Connors way back in the day.
You like that dude that's still trapped in Australia? I heard a lot.
Novak Djokovic? No, he's not still there. He's playing. He's not my favorite.
DJ, thank you, my man. Enjoy your lunch, and I have some hot cookies waiting for you on the other side.
I appreciate that.
Daniel Jeremiah, you know where to find him everywhere from now till the draft. Where are you going, by the way, after the draft? You disappear?
My kids are still in school. Everybody's like, you go on vacation? I'm like, no, the kids are in school. I stay home.
How annoying you always send out a tweet, though, like, all right, which reality shows should I start watching?
I jump into HGTV heavy.
There you go.
I don't know, when does the new season of Renovation Island come out? That's one of my favorites. I love that.
Is it really annoying that every conversation you have at some point is like, man, you must be pretty busy? Of course he's busy. He's Jeremiah. All right. Thank you, buddy.
I really didn't answer your text, did I?
He says 15
It's all right. I didn't take
He knows we're going to take 20.
But that's why it was a
15,
surprise when Ricky Hollywood came to us and said,
if she would ask me, I would have replied
we have
like that.
exactly 15 minutes with DJ
Yeah, DJ's
tomorrow.
never ghosted one of my texts.
Split ends, you just say the word.
Oh,
I'm there.
perfect.
I'm there.
Thanks.
There you go.
See you guys.
All right, there he goes, Daniel Jeremiah. Yes, he was a kinder, gentler Jeremiah, but you always wonder if that's a setup for something else.
It usually is with him, although I don't know. Maybe we've all been through a lot the last few years, pandemic, and maybe we're back, and it's just like he cares more about the people behind the mics.
Wow. Well, that'd be really nice.
Because at some point I feel like the whole Herbert Blacklock thing has started to annoy him. So I need to step back.
I was a little surprised you brought it up here on the program, but
well, he brought it up first, so it was on his mind.
Right. And then you twisted the knife on him a little bit. But that's okay.
I was trying to say it really has haunted me. I'm not joking. Immediately after we did that show, I was like furious, and I was like, I can't believe I did, because we're not going to have Justin Herbert again. He's only doing that Super Bowl car wash once. Time at the point where he realized, like, oh, I could just say no and not do this, and I'd still get money.
Right.
I actually don't need to do any of this. Right. Like, I'm still going to be just as famous and just as rich. Like, this was it. It's not happening again. And I didn't ask him that question, because then it might have even come up. He might have brought it up to DJ at some point when they were. Well,
talking, here's the other way to look at it. We are. Our podcast, you never know. In a couple of years, the podcast could be even more visible space, and we'll get Herbert like these other. It's not like Herbert's an untouchable. He's just not going through the car wash anymore.
He's not doing the car wash. At best, he'll be in the Tony Romo shilling for DirecTV, not even paying attention to what he's saying phase of his career.
I mean, I'm working on training camp content planning right now.
Well, there you go.
We could be there
again.
There was what was it when you were out? Someone was listening to a past episode of our show. And it started with, we were doing Qualis tu Fantasia, and the past episode with Wes involved, you would open the episode when we were in our news segment talking about how much you were intrigued by Blake Bortles and how much you enjoyed his play. So we've all whiffed,
He did have that second year where it was like, Blake Bortles. People around, like, I wasn't the only one. People were like, this could be fun. And then,
all right, there we go. Thank you to DJ. Thank you to everybody for listening. We'll be back on the television or wherever you watch things that are on TV at this point. I don't know how it works. Game Pass UK, those people. I think you could watch the Around the NFL broadcast as well. YouTube as well. So make sure to keep an eye out, but it's on NFL Network tomorrow in a new time slot. So make sure you check out your local listings. That time slot, I believe, is
1 hour later than it was before. I think it's 4 p.m. Eastern now.
4 p.m. Eastern. So check it out. And have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday as we inch closer to the draft. We get Mark Sessler back, so we'll have the whole gang together to dig in as we get ready for our last week before we head to Vegas. It's happening, Greggy. Until then, heed the call.